Tarswell's razor. Emotion causes bias, but it also causes motivation. As such, we're most likely to act when our judgment can be trusted least. Solution: don't trust thoughts you have while emotional. Instead, pause and wait for the feeling to pass before acting.
Yeah, so I think everybody is not a single person, but is a collection of selves. And some of these selves are much more representative of who we are at our core than others. And I think emotion can bring out a side of us that is not really us. And it can cause us to act in ways that we would later regret. And I've found this myself, like I don't really do it anymore, but back in the early days, like 10 years ago, sometimes I'd get angry online if somebody said something nasty to me, and I would be spiteful and I would say something nasty back. And I would later read back what I'd written and I'd just be like, wow, I can't believe I actually said that. What an asshole I was. I basically was just as bad as them. Like, I should be better. And I just realized that person that is saying those things was not actually me, because if I'm later regretting when I'm calm, I'm later regretting what I actually said when I was angry, then it's not really me. I'm one of the things I say is that, when you act when you're emotional, you are an ambassador for your most primitive self. You're basically acting for your most animal self because you're engaging your reptilian brain. And any decision that I've made when I've been emotional has pretty much turned out to be a bad decision. I mean, or at least it's been suboptimal. I always make better decisions when I'm mentally sort of balanced. And I think that's true of pretty much anybody. Like if you send that email in the spur of the moment, more often than not, you're going to think, I could have worded that better. I could have worded that a lot better. So what I do now is, it's not like I'm a robot. I do feel emotions. If somebody says something nasty to me online, I get an urge to just be nasty back. I get it. Like we all do. We're all humans. But I don't. I never do it now. I'm never spiteful. If I reply to somebody, and sometimes I'm snarky. I am snarky, but I tend to do it in a way that I think is more productive. But what I always do is if I'm feeling particularly emotional, I'll always wait for that emotion to pass, because it will pass. And it's amazing how often, when you let that emotion pass and then you consider what you would have done when you were emotional, and you realize how idiotic it would have been. That's happened to me so many times that I actually am afraid of acting when I'm emotional now, because I just realize how demented I am when I'm emotional. Yeah. And I think this is true of everybody. Yeah, it is deranging, because emotions ultimately are the opposite of rationality. They are a shortcut. There's this thing called the effect heuristic, which is this idea that emotions evolve. I would say emotions evolve for two purposes. One of them is they evolve for motivation, and the other is that they evolved for decision-making in low information environments. Your gut feeling, for instance, your gut feeling is how you make decisions when you don't have enough information. And the thing with gut feeling is it's actually often wrong. People will say, oh, I swear by, I've got a really good gut. I've got a really good gut feeling. I'm always, I always trust my gut. But what they're doing is they're engaging in confirmation bias. They will usually remember when their gut feeling was right, but they won't remember when their gut feeling was wrong. And so they're obviously going to naturally be skewed towards believing that their gut feeling is more accurate than it actually is. And that's why I don't really trust it so much. There's something called intuition, which is a little bit more than gut feeling, which is more something that you've learned to trust over time. It's something that certain cues that you just see, and then from that you can build up a full picture. But just relying on emotion alone is usually not a good strategy for decision making, because again, emotion favors short-term impulses. It favors short-term compulsion loops over long-term compulsion loops. And so this is why I think you should always, if you're going to make an important decision, just wait for the emotion to pass. It will pass. Most emotions don't last very long. Most emotions last a few minutes, and then they weaken and they fade, and that's all you've got to do. Just wait a couple of minutes, and then compare your actions when you're not emotional to how you were going to act when you were emotional, and you will realize there's a massive difference. And that way you'll prevent yourself from many regrets, I think.